Hey everyone, Chris here, your mentor at the Lorcana Tutor. Today we're going to start the first video in a series that I've wanted to make for a while called Lorcana 101. And my goal here is to say, okay, if I were to teach a friend how to play Lorcana, how to improve different tactics about the game, how would I convey that information? And this is going to be my brainchild of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at lesson 1, which is going to be how to actually play the game. So this is designed for people that have never played Lorcana at all, maybe never even played a trading card game. So I'm going to try to explain it in a way that I think makes sense, that built on itself, and hopefully gets you feeling comfortable to try to play the game on your own. So let's first talk about what Lorcana is. So Lorcana is a trading card game. Now, a trading card game usually refers to each player building their own deck and then putting the decks against each other in a head-to-head game. And Disney Lorcana is the same exact way. Each player is going to have a deck of at least 60 cards, and the objective of the game is to be the first player to reach 20 points, which we call lore. Now, before we talk about how do you gain lore and all of that kind of stuff, let's talk a little bit more about the cards in a broader sense. So each one of the cards is going to be categorized into one of these 6 categories called inks. The inks are based off of these colors and gems. So we have amber, amethyst, emerald, ruby, sapphire, and steel. Each one of these inks has a very distinct identity where it's going to play differently. It's going to have different strength. It's going to have different weaknesses. And part of the joy of trading card games is finding the style that you think works best for you. Now, each deck is going to be made up of at most 2 colors. So you could have a deck that uses amber and amethyst, a deck that uses amber ruby, ruby sapphire. You can pick any 2, which means that there are 15 different types of color combinations for you to choose from, and in any one given color combination there are many different ways to build a deck, so you can really make it as unique to you as you like. And I think that this is one of the things that is the most fun about trading card games, is trying out all the different color combinations and finding out which one really connects with you the most. Now, there are going to be 4 different subtypes of cards. So the main one is going to be character cards. This is going to be what most of the deck is made up with. There are going to be action cards, item cards, and location cards. Each card is going to have a cost to play the card, or else, you could just play, okay, I'm going to play Maui right away. That's not how it works, really. So Olaf, the cost of the card is going to be in the top left-hand corner, and it's going to be the number that is inside of the fancy-looking circle. So, for example, Olaf would cost 1 to play, and Maui would cost 8 to play. The resource in this game is going to be called ink. So you might say, okay, I'm going to spend 1 ink to play Olaf, or I'm going to spend 8 ink to play Maui. Now, how do we get this ink? How do we get these resources? So like I said, Lorcana is a turn-based game. So one player takes a turn, then another player takes a turn, and back and forth. And once during your turn, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell, which is just another way to say your resource pile in this game. And then that card will remain in the inkwell for the remainder of the game. Now, the one little fun thing about Disney Lorcana is that some cards are inkable and some cards are uninkable. So to recognize whether a card is inkable or not, you want to look at the cost, but notice that the inkable card, so for example, Olaf here, has that extra flair around the cost, where the card Bend to My Will does not. It is just the hexagon, and that means that it is uninkable. So at no point in the game can it be put into your inkwell. Now, we were talking about you need 20 lore to win the game. So let's talk about how we get that, and through the most common way, playing and questing with characters. So each character is going to have this little symbol here put in the circles, and that is going to say how much lore they can gain on a single quest. And we'll talk about what questing is in a second. But Olaf has 1 lore pip, so it means that it would gain 1 lore on a quest, while Maui has 3, so it would gain 3 lore on a quest. So questing is going to be the main way that we gain lore in Disney Lorcana. And the idea is that when a character is in play, you can turn it sideways, or what we call exerting it, to then gain lore equal to the lore pips on the card. So like I said, if I quest with Maui, he's going to gain 3 lore because he has 3 lore pips. And if I quest with Olaf, he's going to gain 1 lore because he has 1 lore pip. Great. Now, when a character is exerted, they are then vulnerable to be what we call challenged. And challenged is just a way to remove characters off of your opponent's board, so that way they cannot quest with that character again. They cannot gain more lore. This is where the other 2 numbers come into play. So the 2 numbers are referred to as strength and willpower. So the number to the left is always going to be the strength, and the number to the right is always going to be the willpower. The strength is going to be the number of damage counters that this character places on a character in a challenge, while the willpower is how many damage characters this character can hold before they are banished and then sent to the discard pile. So this is often I think, initially confusing thing to get used to. So I'm going to try to break it down, and hopefully it makes sense. So let's say last turn my opponent quested with their Robin Hood character. He quests for 1. He has 2 strength and 2 willpower. Now I decided with my Olaf, I want to challenge this Robin Hood because I don't want the Robin Hood to quest. Olaf has 1 strength and 3 willpower. So what I would do is I'm going to exert Olaf and declare that I'm going to challenge Robin Hood. Now, in this challenge, both characters deal damage equal to their strength to each other. So in this little diagram here, and often when I'm playing, I'll use dice to represent the damage on a character. So Robin Hood has 1 damage on him because Olaf has 1 strength. Olaf has 2 strength on him because Robin Hood has 2 strength. So they deal strength across to each other. Now, if we look at their willpower, Robin Hood has 2 willpower, so he is still in play because he only has 1 damage counter on him. And Olaf has 3 willpower, so he's still in play because he only has 2 damage on him after the challenge. Now, let's look at it in a different sense here. So Lilo here quested last turn. She had quests for 2, and I definitely don't want my opponent to quest for 2 again, but her stats are 1 strength and 1 willpower. So now in this instance, when I challenge with my Olaf, both characters would deal their strength to each other, right? So Lilo would deal 1 damage to me, but I have 3 willpower, so it still lives. While Olaf deals 1 damage to Lilo, and since she only has 1 willpower, she's actually going to be banished. And what that means is now she's going to be removed from play and put into that player's discard pile and removed for the rest of the game. One really important note to make about challenging is that you can only challenge an exerted character. So if, like in this example here, Lilo is exerted, so I'm able to challenge her. But if she was not exerted, so if she had just been played last turn or she got readied by some other means, I would not be able to challenge her with one of my characters. Now, in addition, many characters have abilities. There are 3 broad categories of abilities that I like to categorize them in. There is a one-time effect ability, there is a conditional ability, and an exert ability. So the one-time effect would be it happens 1 time. So for example, with Maleficent, it says when you play this character, you may draw a card. That only happens when the character is played. It doesn't happen when it quests. It's just that one-time effect. Now, if we look at Shere Khan, he has the ability whenever one of your characters challenges another character, you gain a lore. So there's a condition that needs to be met. So anytime that you challenge with one of your characters, you would then just gain a lore in addition. A really cool card, one of my favorites. And then there is an exert ability. So rather than questing or challenging on the turn, you can exert the character to use the ability on the card that it says. So for example, for this Robin Hood here, I could exert it to deal 1 damage to chosen character. So it's similar to challenging, but he just wouldn't take any damage in the using the ability. He would just deal 1 damage to a character. There are a bunch of different abilities, and each abilities hopefully written out clearly, but there are going to be some that are more common than others and that have been shortened to using keywords. Now, all of the keywords are written out on the cards, so you can still read them if you're unsure or you forget what they are, but we're just going to go through all the keywords together. So Pongo has evasive, and it says only characters with evasive can challenge this character. So, say if I were to quest with Pongo and then my opponent had an Olaf out, if he tried to challenge with it, he wouldn't be able to actually because the Olaf does not have evasive. You would need to have another character with evasive to challenge this Pongo. Aladdin has ward, and opponents can't choose this character except to challenge. So if you remember like the Robin Hood ability where it said chosen character or deal 1 damage to chosen character, you wouldn't be able to choose this Aladdin card because it has ward and it can't be chosen. It could be challenged, but it cannot be chosen by any abilities. Captain Hook has the keyword challenger. That's when challenging, this character gains plus whatever it is. So it's challenger +2, so he would gain +2 strength. One really important thing about this is it only happens when this character is initiating the challenge. So when Captain Hook is challenging, he would actually have 3 strength, but when he is being challenged, he still only has 1 strength because the challenger only works when that character is challenging. And then Rafiki has the keyword rush that says this character can challenge the turn they're played. We're going to go over this again, but normally when you play a character, you can't challenge with it. You cannot quest with it on the turn. That's what the one thing that is really cool about rush is that you could play it down, kind of surprise your opponent, and challenge one of their characters. Some other keywords we have are bodyguard. So you can have it enter play exerted, and if your opponent wants to challenge, it would have to challenge the character with bodyguard before it challenges any of the other things. So it's really good at protecting characters that maybe you want to quest with next turn as well. This Gaston here has reckless, where it says it can't quest and must challenge each turn if able. Beast has resist, where damage dealt to this character is reduced by 1. So if something was to challenge with 1 strength, it would actually deal no damage. If it was to challenge with 2 strength, it would only deal 1 damage, so on and so forth. And then Chief Tui here has support, and it says whenever this character quests, you may add their strength to another character's strength. So this is really good if you have, like, say if you want to quest with this character, but then you want to challenge with another character, you can increase the strength on the other character by questing with this first, and maybe trade off a stronger character than you would have been able to before. Like I was saying earlier, characters cannot be exerted on the turn that they are played. This is a really, really important concept to know in the game. So when they're played, you cannot quest with them. You cannot challenge with them right away unless they have that keyword rush, and you cannot use any exert abilities with them. This is referred to as the character is drying. Again, it's very thematic. If you're using the ink, you're kind of drawing it out. The ink is still drying, so it cannot do anything on the first turn that it is played. Each character card is also going to have a tag here. Now, the tags for the most part are just kind of flavorful. So the first one, you'll see either Storyborn, Dreamborn, or Floodborn. That just refers to really the art. So if it's a Storyborn, it's inspired by the art. If it's a Dreamborn, it's their own creative take on the character. And then Floodborn is actually more we'll talk about a little bit more. The other tags can have synergies with other cards. So for example, if we look here, Hercules has the tag Hero and Prince. We're really going to be focusing on the hero aspect, because if we look at Phil here, he has a couple of abilities that care about hero cards. So for example, his first ability says your hero characters gain Challenger +1. So when they're both in play, now Hercules also has Challenger +1 and can challenge with a strength of 4. And then whenever you play a hero character, you gain 1 lore. So a really cool synergy, and you can see, okay, maybe I want to build a deck with a bunch of heroes, and I want to use Phil to kind of increase them up. And there's a bunch of these little synergies throughout the game. Now, Floodborn is another unique mechanic in Lorcana. So again, it will have the tag, it will say Floodborn there. And what happens is every Floodborn character has this ability Shift and then a number. Shift is the ability to play a Floodborn character on top of another character with the same name for the shift cost instead of their normal cost. So for example here, the Tinkerbell normally costs 6, but it has a shift 4. So what you can do is say, okay, well, last turn I played this Tinkerbell for 3. I'm going to ink, and then I'm going to shift this Tinkerbell on top of the Tinkerbell that I already have. You get more stats, and then you get both the abilities happen at the same time. So can it be a really strong thing to pay less for a character that normally costs more? And what's really nice about this is that since the character was already down, you can challenge with the Floodborn character right away. You can quest with the Floodborn character right away, as long as the character that is shifting onto is already done drying. So if I were to say I had 7 ink and I went, okay, I'm going to play Tinkerbell and then I'm going to shift Tinkerbell on the same turn, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. But if you were played Tinkerbell your last turn and then you played the Floodborn and you shifted on top of it the next turn, you would be able to still quest and challenge with it as needed. The next type of cards are actions. Now, actions are just a one-time effect. I think they're probably one of the more straightforward cards to understand. After the effect happens, then you just put that card right into your discard pile. Just like characters, actions can be inkable, uninkable. There's a whole bunch of different effects. We're not going to get into all of that. But there are 2 types of actions, and this is, again, where the tag comes in. There another really, really cool thing I think is very thematic to Disney in general is that some action cards are songs. And the idea with these songs is that you can either play them for their normal cost, which is still in the left-hand corner, or you'll see written on the card, a character with cost 3 or more, usually the cost of the card, so if we're looking at friends on the other side, can exert to play this song for free. So rather than paying the cost of the card, you can just exert a character with the same cost as the song, and then you would just get the effect of that for free. So let's look at how this works. So let's say on play, I have this Maleficent. She costs 3, and I want to play friends on the other side. So I could either leave the Maleficent up and spend 3 ink, or exert 3 of my cards that are in my inkwell to then just play friends on the other side and have that effect happen. Or I can just exert the Maleficent because she costs 3 and have her sing friends on the other side. And then I would still have my 3 ink to use to play other characters, other actions, whatever I wanted to do that turn. There is another keyword here called singer, where the singer cost would replace their normal cost for when they are singing songs. So, for example, this Cinderella has singer 3 that allows her to sing songs that cost 3 or less. So even though she only costs 1, she would still be able to sing friends on the other side. And again, this is really powerful because she can sing it earlier than you would be able to do it normally. The next card we're going to talk about here are items. Items are cards that you play and then stay on the in-play area. And just like characters, there are different types of effects. So there's one that you can repeat. So with the Fishbone Quill, you can exert the item to put any card from your hand into your inkwell face down. There are some that have a passive effect or a conditional effect, kind of like what we talked about with Shere Khan, that says when an opponent plays a song, you may draw a card. And then there are some that have an effect that require you to banish the item. So, for example, this Miracle Candle says, banish this item if you have 3 or more characters in play, gain 2 lore, and remove up to 2 damage from a chosen location. So this would be a card maybe you play early on in the game, and then when you say, okay, I have my 3 characters, I'm going to banish it to try to gain 2 lore. Different than characters, items can be exerted on the first turn that they're played. So say if you play a Fishbone Quill, you can use that effect right away to then put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell. Some items will have a cost associated with what they want to do. We still have the 3 categories, but here in the Sorcerer's Spellbook, you can exert it and pay 1 ink to then gain 1 lore. On the weight set, whenever you play a character with 4 strength or more, you may pay 1 ink to draw a card. And then on the Vitalisphere, you can pay 1 and banish this item to then give a character rush and +2 strength for this turn. The last type of card we're going to look at here is the newest card that they introduced, or the newest card type they introduced, called Locations. Locations have a willpower, so this one's willpower is 4. They do have a little lore symbol, and at the beginning of each turn, you would gain lore equal to however many pips are on there. And then in the left, they have a cost to move a character there. Locations can be challenged just like characters. They are always played horizontal like this, you'll notice that the cost is in the left-hand corner. You kind of might have to look at it like this. But they are always placed down horizontal, and they can always be challenged. So they can still be challenged just like characters can. And same thing, their willpower, they can hold up to 4 damage counters. And once they hit that 4 damage counter, then they are removed from play and put into your discard pile. Some locations will have abilities. So, for example, the Queen's Castle here has at the start of your turn, for each character you have here, you may draw a card. So this is where you get more benefit from moving your characters to this Queen's Castle. So it'll cost 1 to move a character there, but if your character and location exist and you have a character move there, then you, at the start of your turn, you would draw an additional card. The Seven Dwarfs Mine says during your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to a chosen character. If the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. So we see a couple of things here, right? We see it caring about knights. So if it is a knight, then it does a little bit more damage, and you can only do it once per turn, but it costs 2 to move a character here instead of 1. And then Training Grounds, it would cost 1 to use this ability, and chosen character here gets +1 strength this turn. This is a repeatable effect, so if you had a bunch of extra ink and you just wanted to, boost up one of your characters, you can use it as many times as you have available for. But this location doesn't gain you any lore at the start of your turn. Now, I'm going to show you guys a game just to kind of go through the steps of how a turn is run and kind of getting used to seeing how the game itself is actually played. But before we do that, I want to kind of show you the basic setup of how a player's side may look. So you're going to have your hand, which is going to be hidden from your opponent, so it's going to be a little more secretive. Usually you put all of your inkwells, so all your cards you put face down as your resource, kind of in a row, so that way you know which cards are which. You're going to have your play area, which is going to have your items, your locations, your characters. You'll have your deck, and then below that, normally you'll have your discard pile. I think each player organizes things a little bit differently, but this is just how I do it, and I think the most common way to do it. But without any more further ado, let's get started with a game. All right, and now that we've gone through all the basic cards and some of the abilities and such, let's just go through how a game is actually played and kind of how a turn is structured. So to do this, I'm going to be playing a game on this website called inktable.net. I think it's actually a really great resource for beginners learning how to play the game, because you're able to play the game on your own time. All of these games are going to be against a computer, so it's a little less stressful, and you're able to load in your own decks and try some things out. One of the things that's really nice is they actually have all of the starter decks that are released with each set already programmed into the game. So that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be playing starter decks from the newest set, Azurite Sea, and I'm going to be playing the Amber Ruby deck, and I'm going to be playing against the Emerald Sapphire deck. Now, to start a game, we're going to shuffle your deck, and each player is going to draw 7 cards. From here, we go to the altar phase, so we're able to choose any cards that we don't want in our starting hand and return them back to our deck, draw 5, or draw however many cards you put back to get back up to 7. And that's really nice because it allows you to have a little bit more of a consistent starting hand, and now the game has started. So I'm the first player, so I'm going to be going first. Typically, at the start of your turn, you would draw a card, but since I am the first player going first, I do not get to draw a card. Notice how I don't have any resources. I have nothing in my inkwell, nothing in play. So for me to start playing these cards, I need to ink a card to put into my inkwell. So I am going to ink this card, and then I'm going to play one of my 1-cost characters. It has an effect, but I'm not able to do the effect. It says I can heal damage, but I don't have any damage counters to heal. Now from here, I've spent all of my ink this turn, right? I had 1 ink, and I just played my 1-cost character card. So I have nothing else to do, so I am just going to pass. Now, at the beginning of their turn, they draw a card, they ink, they then play 1 card. Now, at the beginning of the turn, they have this thing called ready, set, draw. So the idea is at last turn, my ink was exerted. Before I start, I get to ready it up. I get to bring it back vertical. I get to set, so that would be if I had anything that said, at the beginning of your turn, gain 1 lore or whatever, then I would be able to use those effects, and then I draw my card to start my turn. Now, again, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to ink a card, so that way I can play one of my 2-cost characters. Let's see. I'm going to play this Wendy Darling, and now I have this rabbit. Now, I couldn't challenge the Merryweather because the Merryweather is ready. I can only challenge it if it was exerted. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to quest with the rabbit. I can't do anything with Wendy Darling because Wendy Darling was played on this turn. So I have nothing else I can do. I've spent my 2 ink in my inkwell, and I'm just going to pass the turn. They're going to ready, set, draw as well. They're going to quest with their card. They're going to play a 2-cost character, and now it is my turn. Now, they have a character that is exerted, so I could just challenge with all my, or quest with all my characters, but I'm going to actually challenge with this. So you'll notice here that this has +1. It's because her ability is whenever I have another pirate character in play, she gets +1 strength and +1 lore, and she has evasive, so she can only be challenged by other evasive characters, so this character can't even challenge her. And then I'm going to ink a card and play a card, and then, you know what, I'm going to quest with this rabbit. And that's how a game goes. And you notice that you're getting lore little bit by little bit here, and the more ink that you get up, the more powerful the cards get, and then usually the game starts to go from there. But it's a lot of fun. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but from my experience after playing a game, you kind of like, oh, okay, I get it. And there's a lot of intricacies to learn about the game thereon, but in like the very basic level, it is hopefully a pretty simple game to learn. It's just a lot of like information if not used to playing a TCG. If you're at this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Again, this is my intention to be the first part in a series where hopefully I can provide you with information to learn more about the game, feel like you're more confident understanding it, and it's really just a pleasure to be able to teach this game that I really enjoy playing. If you have any questions about anything or you feel like I missed anything, please leave a comment. I try to be good about responding to comments, but I would love to make sure that this all makes sense. So thank you so much again for watching, and hopefully check in for the next one. See you.